What's going on, Wolfpack Nation? We are back again with Kent Klyman here. I know that we already had an episode kind of talking about Kent and, basically what's going on with him, talking about, the name, image, likeness stuff and the stadium. But now we're going to kind of talk about this team, talk about, what happened in Omaha, talk about, just talk about the program overall. So first of all, Kent, the first thing I really wanted to kind of get at is, basically within about a week period, Coach Avents he went from basically beating Jack Leiter, who's, probably going to go number 2, if not 1 or 3 in the MLB draft, and being as high as maybe we've ever been. And then going from that to dealing with, having to figure out who's playing, who's not playing, to putting together the lineup, and then, finishing the game, and then working on having to work with the team and NCAA officials and NC State officials on how to, handle the situation, and then having to get everybody back home, quarantine, and then go immediately to coach Team USA. So first of all, I want to ask, simple as, would you say that's probably the craziest week period that maybe any NCAA college baseball coach has ever gone through ever? That's insane in my opinion.
I think especially, I was like we talked about last episode, I was there the first weekend. So, I kind of went and saw some of the guys, and I was talking to Coach Avent, Coach Hart, and coach was exhausted after the first weekend. He had gone through two really, really tough games, and facing, two best guys probably that are in the College World Series, the guy from Stanford and then Leiter. So I think he was already drained a little bit, and then for all that to happen at the end of the week, and then now he's coaching Team USA and traveling everywhere. I know he's probably looking forward to a little bit of a break from baseball after he's done coaching Team USA. But I think that was something that was a little bit different for everybody involved, and hopefully nobody else has to go through what those guys had to go through.
No, well, again, I think for me, and I'll tell you this, Ken, because I've said before that, up until, this last, I would say the last half of the season, I was 95 sold on Avent. Obviously, the biggest thing was the 0-6 and ACC championships. But I think for me, the whole second half of the season, the College World Series, Super Regionals, you name it. And then also too, especially how he handled that situation. Again, how there hasn't been any coach that's probably ever had to deal with that situation that he went through. And then hopefully it'll never happen again. So, for me, it just really speaks to not only him as a coach, but him as a person, to really just keep the guys focused. This guy coached a team that lost 3-1 against Rocker, who's again a top 10 draft pick, and the Vanderbilt team, is one of the best teams in the country, definitely top 5, and I think finished number 2 or 3 in the country. And we lost 3-1 against them, which you can't tell me that Coach Avent didn't have a big impact on that. I still remember to this day. Them saying that they saw him basically put his arm around Gary Payne, and I think it was the 5th inning, saying, "We need one more inning. Give us one more inning." And I love that. In love. So that was kind of the biggest thing to me. So I guess I wanted to kind of ask you. Obviously, unfortunately, you weren't able to, spend the time, from the player side, but from the fan side, and even also as your time as a player. Can you kind of shed some light on that? I think this is a time to give Avent as much credit as he rightfully deserves. Simple as that.
Yeah, I think my thing, and I've, obviously everyone's on social media, and you can say what you want about Coach Avent, but my biggest thing that I've noticed is he doesn't. Like you said, the championships aren't there, and they will come. But what he does for his players, growing them as a man, I think is far overshadowed. And people need to realize what he does actually, behind the scenes. What he does, he takes the extra mile for anyone on his team. He puts his players before himself, before anyone. So I think there's a lot to be said of, what he does that isn't on a baseball field for his players and for the Wolfpack family.
Yeah. Well, because for me, the biggest thing to me, and because I know for you, Clint, you probably even thought about this. to be, a guy on the in-state baseball team, who basically has worked your whole life to, whether your dream was to win a national championship or make it to MLB or whatever it is, obviously winning a national championship, and especially as close as this team was, it had to have been just, I mean, the guys could probably just not stop thinking about it. Simple as that.
Yeah.
And so to
Yeah.
literally be woken up by, phone call, knock on door, whatever it was at 2:30 in the morning and being told to go downstairs to the meeting room. I mean, like, can you even wrap your head around, I mean, what those guys were thinking during that moment? Like, what the heck is going on right now? I mean, it's just like you said, as much as as much as Avon has never gone through something like this, I can't imagine a 18, 19, 20-year-old kid going through this and being told that your dream of winning a national championship, as close as you were, is over. Can't imagine it.
Yeah. And the thing that this is just for me, like you said, as a fan side, I was at my girlfriend's house and I actually woke up at 4:45 that morning, and I had seen the news. A couple of the guys were like, "Hey, we're leaving to go to the field." Like they were going to take that picture and everything behind home plate. And I was thinking, what the heck's going on?
Mm-hmm.
And I went and I went on Twitter and I started scrolling, and I was like, holy cow. I didn't even go back. I didn't go back to bed. I literally was up and I did not go back to bed that morning. I was in pure and utter shock of what had happened. And I felt for the guys, and, they took it on the chin, but they handled it like champions. So.
Did you speak to anyone or talk to anyone about that moment, or have you been in touch with anyone what their thoughts were?
I mean, it's a tough line, because you obviously you want to keep playing, but at the same time, you can argue, all the different COVID protocols and all this other stuff, but it's tough because from what I've heard, nobody did anything wrong. Nobody was out partying the 3 days we were off. Nobody was doing anything stupid. It was just something freak that happened. Somehow JT got it, and then it just kind of trickled down from there, and then ended up guys that were vaccinated were getting it. And then I ended up seeing, actually, I think last week, or maybe it was 2 weeks ago, a map on Twitter of the Delta variant and where it is across the country. And the most prevalent spot is the Midwest. It's almost 50% of the positive cases in the Midwest are the Delta variant. And so I think that's what ended up being the straw that broke the camel's back, was just the fact that with the Delta variant, being positive on our team, that we, you couldn't contact trace, but the whole team, because, we're all hanging out. We all love to be together in each other's hotel rooms. We're playing the show, We're playing 2K, we're just hanging out. So
yep.
It's a tough situation, and it's not fair, how the season ended. I mean, how many times have you seen somebody eliminated from the College World Series and only have one loss? It's never happened before. It's not possible other than this scenario right here.
I'm going to speak on that a little bit. I want to speak on a little bit, if you don't mind. I was going to say, because you got to see guys that State fans have never seen before, like Carson Falskin, Eddie Eisert, and D'Angelo Giles. Heck, we saw Garrett Payne. Everybody's seen Garrett Payne pitch before, but he was still a relatively fresh face. And everybody, obviously, the legend of Sam Heightfield became a thing, and he was pretty. I thought it was the second or third hit when he made that hit, and he was like just laughing at himself, like pinch me, I'm dreaming, like I'm a pitcher. I'm playing it first, and I'm going to go 3 for 4 hitting.
Yeah.
So
again,
that's actually, there's a funny story behind that, and that's why I've got a big grin on my face. So there's a couple of different times where we're just, during practice or even, early work before a game or something, we're hanging out down in the batting cage, and we got to talking one day. It was me and a couple of other guys, and Sam was down there, and Coach Hart I was asked Coach Hart, I said, in my time, who do you think's the best first baseman at NC State? And he said, I think it's between Sam and Evan Edwards. And I looked at Sam, I said, Sam, you're kidding, right? You want this guy? You said this guy was one of the best first basemen at NC State that you've seen. And Hart goes, yeah, he's smooth. He's got a decent stroke. And so every chance I get in practice up until Omaha, I was busting Sam's chops about, you're not actually, you're just a pitcher who can feel the ball pretty well. You're not gonna be able to play first base like that. And man, he just proved I was his biggest doubter, just busting his chops. And
yeah, I know.
He goes 3 for 4 off Kumar. So it was
every time every time you make that kind of comment again, he's going to say, "Just roll the tape, man.
Yeah,
Just roll the tape."
exactly.
But yeah, but my whole, I guess, kind of going. That's an awesome story. That's a good story to know. But again, the new guys, Falskin, Isert, Giles.
I mean, I think
Payne. I mean,
like you said, they're not guys that, you know, a lot of people that follow NC State baseball might know their name, but you know, at practice every day, you know, they're putting in the same work that those guys who are getting all the recognition and all their names in the write-ups and stuff. And they're guys that are going to grow, and they're newer to campus, but they're going to grow, and they're going to be stepping into those spots where you saw them in that game. And I think they're going to succeed, and they're going to really, you know, project into those guys that are going to be in every write-up and going to be making a bigger impact on the teams for the next couple of years.
This game, I felt like just was special, even though we lost.
Mm-hmm.
We almost beat them. You know, with Sam Hatfield playing first and hitting and going 3 for 4. And you had Isert, Giles, and Falskin playing. Falskin was at second. And you had guys shifting all over the place. And one guy's playing right field, booster center. One guy goes to third. He's playing left field. I mean, it's just like, I'm just throwing out just different position changes. Yeah. I would say it's got to be one of the most classic ACC performances. Like, I'm not saying like, oh, it's one of the greatest games ever played. But at the same time, it's like, it's kind of legendary a little bit already. Like, it's just like, name me another time where you've had to see a team of 13 players and one college baseball team play for a national championship almost.
When's the last time you put the guy who was voted the best first baseman in the country in left field? When's the last time that's happened?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Just think about the perspective of other sports, though. Could you imagine putting your 5 bench players up against Duke or UNC? We'd lose by 40.
Or put it this way, let's say it was football. Imagine your wide receiver or running back has to move to quarterback. Your center has to move to tackle, and your running back has to play tight end.
Yeah.
And it's like,
no chance.
That would be so crazy. That's basically what happened. It doesn't make any sense.
And your quarterback is now your safety, and
yeah.
I think it was one of the grittiest performances up there for sure
of college baseball. I was actually watching Packer and Durham for the next couple of days after that game, and they were even talking about in all-time ACC performances. You know, where does that rank? And I was sitting there thinking, I was like, I mean, I'm not an ACC historian or anything, but I follow a lot of sports and I've seen a lot of different games. That one was something that will be remembered in ACC history for a long time.
I would say it's got to be, arguably at least a top 10 consensus game in the ACC period.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say top 5 just as far as what the weight of it was. And that was, I mean, we talked about this on a previous episode. For those of you want to go look into it, you go check out that video too. But that was the epitome, I would say, of guys just loved playing baseball. I mean, like it was like when you were a kid, you could just go and play. You outfielder is going to come and pitch sometimes. He's come in here and hit. Maybe he's going to catch a little bit. It's just kind of like the love of the game for these guys who everybody, the big brother essentially was kind of stacking the deck against them. And they're like, well, forget that. We're going to go out there and try to win the thing.
Yeah.
And I don't know. It just was awesome to me. If you love sports, you love that game and you'll never forget it, kind of thing.
If you could make a 30 for 30 on this whole baseball season, but you could also make one just on that game alone and in those 2 days.
Before we kind of move on to the next step, we want to take a quick second here and give a shout out to our sponsors, Flatlands Jessup Insurance Group, that has your whole world covered with agents in 5 offices throughout East North Carolina to help you decide how much coverage you need, offering policies for home and auto, recreational vehicles, commercial health, life, and employee benefits. They are able to combine options to help find a comprehensive solution that works for you. You can find them on Instagram and Facebook at Flatlands Jessup. You can also visit their webpage at www.flatlandsjessup.com. So please make sure to go and check them out. The biggest thing for me, especially for you, Kent, that I really wanted to ask is, I know we had a live stream. We talked to Rob about this, but I want to kind of get your viewpoint also too as a pitcher, and it's also since Garrett, because what was it, maybe like an hour or not even before the game, basically, I guess probably Avon or Coach Chrysler, whatever, walks over to Garrett Payne and says, "Hey, listen, we need to send you out there to go start against, arguably one of the more I mean, one of the top teams in the country, not necessarily from the batting side, but still, I mean, you're looking in the opposite dugout and you're seeing Vanderbilt, who is widely known as, a powerhouse baseball program in NCAA, and you have to go pitch against them now. And also too, when you walk off that mound, that Kumar Rocker is walking up right behind you. Like, I mean, what a moment, what a situation to be thrown into, absolutely thrown into. And so, I mean, and this is the guy too. I mean, up until that point, had like a 7.5 ERA, something like that. So I mean, it was. I mean, I know from us, we were like, hey, I mean, we'll see what happens. But I mean, for you, I mean, think about maybe like if you were in that situation. But also too, even since Garrett, what was your kind of like thoughts on that moment for Garrett? I mean, it's again, we're talking about insane moments. I mean, what an insane situation to even be in for Garrett.
Yeah, and I mean, just from a baseball perspective, you're sitting there and you're Garrett Payne, and I know everybody's really relaxed before the games, and all of us pitchers after BP's over with, we kind of just go hang out and mess around and do whatever. And he was probably his normal self, hanging out with all the other guys, just messing around, doing whatever, and he probably was a little bit taken by surprise. So, but I think the thing that probably helped him is the fact that it was so close to game time. He didn't have a chance to sit around and think about it and worry about it. He just said, give me the ball and let's go. I think that was kind of his something that, was unfortunate, but hey, I think it helped him a little bit. He's a guy that likes to build off of success, and he gets a lot of confidence as he keeps going. And you could see that in that game. I think he really grew. I don't know if you can grow up in one game, but he really took the bull by the horns and just said, let's go, let's do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, because even from a confidence perspective, and I kind of want to ask this not only just for Garrett, but for like guys like Falkson and Eddie Iser that played that hadn't played really up much to that point. I mean, I would say it was kind of a blessing almost in disguise. You don't wish it would have happened, but if you're going to look at it from a positive perspective, you do say, well, these are guys that are probably going to be starting for us next season. Like, Robin, Mick, and I were saying that. I mean, Garrett made a definite, a great case of why maybe he should replace Reed Johnson if he does decide to move on as a starter. And but like even like for Iser, it's like these guys are saying to myself, I just went against, I just tried to hit against, one of the best, pitchers in the country in Kumar Rocker. Or from Garrett's perspective, I just went against, and stood on a bullpen in one of the toughest environments that any pitcher's ever had to deal with. So it's almost kind of like a confidence builder for next season. I think might give us an edge, honestly. Do you kind of agree with that, Kent?
Yeah, I think it's one of those things, with the season, being shortened by a couple games, and we didn't play a lot of non-conference, early on guys get their feet wet and they get to come in, whether it's and get 2 ABs in a midweek game, or they get a start on a Sunday, where, it's what's going to happen is going to happen. And I think the biggest thing is I equate what happened to them as, when you're learning to swim, and instead of just walking you into the pool, somebody just takes you and throws you in the deep end and says, get to the edge. Mm-hmm. I think that's kind of how it was. But I think at the end of the day, when you make it to the edge, you're confident you can swim a little bit then. And so I think those guys are going to just build off of that. And I think they're going to take this off season and really, really grind and really, get down to the nitty gritty and get better all around. And like you said, I think that we'll see a couple of those faces, in the starting lineups come around next spring.
What's your thoughts on the rotation coming up this year with all these young guys?
I think, like you said, with what Reed chooses to do, I know I talk to Reed every day, so we haven't really talked about what he's going to do. I think he kind of wanted to decompress from the year and everything, so he'll make that decision, I would assume, after the draft. But I think a lot of those guys that you saw in big spots, like you said, obviously Sam, but Chris Villeman, he came up huge out of the bullpen after, in the postseason after his midweek role had kind of, been ended. So I think he's another person that you're going to see that makes, leaps and bounds, especially him playing for Team USA right now. I think that's going to help him. I know I just watched his interview from the other night, and like he said, he's learning from all these other great players across the country. I think that's the great thing about what him and Sam are doing right now is not only do they get Coach Avon and another one of our student coaches, Josh Pike, he's also there helping, and what an addition he's been to the coaching staff with all the things he's helped with, the younger pitchers and everything. But those guys are also going to just work with different guys across the country, and you're just going to learn from them. And you incorporate some of their stuff that they do, pre or post game, and you do that repeatedly throughout the off season, and that becomes part of your routine maybe. So I think all those things that those guys are experiencing, those two guys are experiencing, as well as some of the younger guys, the John Moralia, the John Moralias of the world, the like you said, Garrett Payne, Tristan Sipple, Kobe Ingle. A lot of those guys are going to be key guys next year, and they're gonna take an opportunity and pounce on it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So just to kind of wrap things up. So one of the biggest things that I kind of wanted to jump at. So I mean, one guy that we haven't really talked about, Matt Willison. I mean, I think that we were kind of saying that it's especially with how many guys are leaving this team. It's really important to see some of the young guys really start to kind of establish themselves. And so I think that you're looking at having this great freshman trifecta of Sam Highfield, Chris Villeman, and Matt Willison. I think State fans should still feel pretty good overall. I mean, for next season. I mean, even though we're losing a lot, if you can have a great bullpen head, to kind of build around, I think that really sets you up for a great season. So, I mean, just wanted to kind of get your thought. I mean, being, maybe a senior guy and they were kind of the freshmen coming in, probably, kind of looking at you for guidance, I mean, how big was it? I mean, I know you kind of already talked about Sam and Chris. Maybe talk a little bit about Matt in terms of, I mean, how shocking was it that, to see these guys, perform as well as they have, especially in the postseason?
Yeah. I mean, I worked a lot with Matt actually in last fall. We were kind of both on the summer program. We were doing a little bit of drive line, trying to build up some velocity, and he had a couple of rough patches during the year, and he'll tell you that, but I think that helped him grow, and you could see towards the end of the year he had gotten that confidence back that he had early on, especially everyone likes to talk about the Carolina series where he threw, I don't know how many pitches, but in one day it was actually unreal. He's one of those guys that he's so athletic, and he came in as a two-way, and we always joke around, hey Matt, you gonna do some arm care to warm up? And he's like, swings his arms back and forth, a couple over top, and he's like, I'm ready to throw. Let's do it. So I think he's one of those guys that could just use his athleticism, to his advantage. And I think another guy that showed some flashes this year. I look at the Wake Forest game, especially, is Andrew Tillery. I think he's another freshman in that could sneak up into that and make it a foursome. They could be, that's a scary group of guys that are still young, that if they put the work in and they keep on that ascend up the mountain, that when they get to the top, this whole pitching staff could be something special.
My one question is going to be: is Sam Highfield going to fight for a DH spot next year?
I think you might have to see what Coach Hart has to say about that. I think if he ends up being a Friday night guy, hey, Carlos did it. Carlos did it a couple times. He was a DH. So I mean, I think
he's got a strong case to do it now.
Yeah, exactly. Sam's got a decent argument. I think Sam likes to play defense and hit a little bit, but I think he knows on the mound is where he's going to hang out for a long time.
Yeah. I think, I'm sure you probably saw Clint, but for those State fans who for some reason didn't see with his interview with Team USA, where they asked him, are you a pitcher or are you a batter? And he said, well, they tell me I'm a pitcher. I mean, which I love that. I think that's, one of the greatest, quotes ever. I love that. So, so awesome. Well, thank you so much again, Ken. Really appreciate your time. And thank you so much again for, joining us. And, definitely, I know I speak for most, if not all State fans when I say, we definitely wish you the best of luck. And I think there's no doubt. I think that I can bet that we'll catch you at Doak Field for at least a couple of games every season, I'm sure.
Yeah, most definitely. I'll hopefully be living in the Raleigh area for a little bit. So I'll definitely be swinging by the Doak as much as I can. But thank you guys for having me. It's been a good time, and hopefully I can come back on sometime.
Absolutely. Well, thank you all so much again. And thank you all so much for tuning in. And please make sure, again, hit that subscribe button. Please like this video. Check our other content. Follow us at Tuffy Talk Now on Twitter, Instagram. So thank you all so much. And please tune in for next episode. Thank you all so much, and go Pack.